My first play was Ladies in Retirement in 1974.
Oh, Jitters in 1981. Peter Galvin wrote me in as stage manager. Thank goodness I managed to get into a more comfortable role as a member of the set construction crew. I've been fortunate in working with so many talented set designers and willing crew members over the years, including It's a Wonderful Life next month.
That's easy to remember because I auditioned for the Theatre Guild. It was Shirley Ashenden, and she was doing the gazebo. And I was about 8 months pregnant when I auditioned, and we'd never met each other before, but anyhow, we seemed to click, and I couldn't believe I got the part. And luckily, rehearsals didn't start for another 3 or 4 months, so it all worked out just fine.
Well, I think it has to be that when I first came to Brockville, and I was so interested in the Theatre Guild, and to hear that they were hunting for an ingenue, and my goodness, but at that time I was an ingenue, by the way, and it was wonderful when they asked me to play the part. Wasn't that big a part, you know, in our town, but it was a part that I wanted.
Well, the first play I was involved in was Any Wednesday. It was directed by Chris Warsnop and Sue Braden. When I first went out, I thought I'd try a bit of method acting, and one of my pet actors was De Niro. And if you ever watch De Niro, he tends to deliver and then move off and then come back into delivering. And so I thought that that's what I would do. I would deliver and I would look off. And I heard this voice coming from the director's chair saying, "What are you looking over there for?"
It was The Devil and Daniel Webster, directed by Kay Fowler. So I was given the part of the young bride. That was wonderful. And we had just acquired the Brockville Civic Auditorium, as it was then called, and so we could actually perform on the stage of what was once a movie theater.
The first play was 10 Little Indians. I was a prompter. Roger Tripp got me involved, I guess to keep me happy that you were out of the house so much.
In the mid-1970s, the play was called See How They Run. It was directed by Sue Braden, and it too was a comedy, included a large number of clergymen, of whom I was one. I think I was the Reverend Toop. And it was exciting for me because the Saturday we moved into the theatre, I woke up in Melbourne, Australia, and I had to fly back in a hurry to appear in the show. And I remember that day having breakfast 4 times. Once in Melbourne, once in Sydney, once in Hawaii, and once in Vancouver, all on Saturday.
My favorite moment, that would be, I think after the festival when Jitters won so many awards. I chaired it with Joy Goodfellow, and we had a great committee, and it was just a wonderful feeling to know that it was a success all the way around, and that Brockville was well represented and won.
My favorite moment or moments is directing. I think that's where I derive the most enjoyment. What I liked about it is the fact that you get this ensemble of people. Some have never worked before, never had the opportunity to act. Some have had experience. You watch them growing as individuals, and eventually, if you're lucky, it comes together into a cohesive product that tells the truth, which is what it's all about.
Well, we'll have to go a little bit forward. We'll have to go into the 1970s, and I had by this time become a director of plays, and the favorite moment was with the EODL Festival in the early 70s. We were presenting Gingerbread Lady. We had to go to Peterborough. That was where the festival was held. And it was in May. But there was a freak heavy snowstorm. The roads were impassable. And the EODL requirements were that the curtain went up at 8 o'clock in the evening, and there were no exceptions of any kind. The crew didn't get there till late in the afternoon. They had to unload the truck. They had to set up on this strange stage. And as the audience came in, you could hear hammer, hammer, bang, bang. The audience sat down, but we knew the curtain had to open at 8 o'clock. Hammer, hammer, bang, 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 rustle. 8 o'clock struck. The curtains parted, and there was the set. Perfect. They'd managed it. So my congratulations to all stage crews, and especially that one.
Well, I guess, you know what? I think the day I was cast as the lead in our town, well, the female part wasn't the lead really, and also the day that they phoned me and asked me if I would play Madame Ranarskaya in the Cherry Orchard. That was a big, big plus. I wanted that part so badly. And you know, you get to a point when you're in the theater for a while, you know, people sort of say, well, she gets all the good parts. You know, I want, and it's time for somebody else to step in. I was just hoping I would be good enough to do that part. And then to win an award for it, it was super.
Well, that would be when the audience started applauding, when the curtains opened to reveal the set for The Odd Couple in 2011. And that was before a single word had been spoken by the talented cast.
My favourite moment with the Brockville Theatre Guild was in a one-act play at Bancroft. We were directed by Joy Goodfellow, and Pat Marshall and I did a very simple little comedy one-act play called Dutch Treat, and we won the one-act festival to our great surprise and joy.
Oh, well, the favorite blooper moment there. We didn't have bloopers, my dear. We couldn't afford to have bloopers. But there was one funny one. You see, in the Theatre Guild, if you were in a play one semester or whatever, the next one you had to work backstage. So Polly Billings and I were setting the set for this. And there was a bottle of wine on a lovely silver tray with the wine glasses all there, you know, and we had to provide the wine. Well, she had to make it, and she made it out of Jell-O, without thinking that the Jell-O would set. So when it came the night of the play, they poured the wine, and we couldn't get out of the bottle. It just couldn't go. It didn't. So we were going like this, and there'd be a plop in a glass. And of course, the audience by this time were in hysterics, and so were we. We were shaking so we could hardly get it in the glasses.
We did a performance at that lovely old theatre in Cornwall of Move Over Mrs. Markham. Again, rather a silly little comedy. At one point was the discovery of a letter which betrayed some infidelity or something and was required to be found on the couch by me. So I sit down on the couch, no letter. Fortunately, I had done a little plan B, and I had a spare letter in my pocket, which was instantly added to the sofa, and I don't think the audience noticed, but my heart rate was very high.
Well, one of the interesting times was one play a long time ago in Up the Down Staircase that you were in, that one of the students came in about 5 pages too early. So you kicked them out of class, being a good teacher that you were.
A bit of a blooper. We were doing a Usnick and Old Lace. And Sheila Shanks and I were the old ladies, really growing into the part now. It was a lot of fun. It was a great cast. And we had borrowed a lot of furniture from Fulford Place. So there it is on the stage. We did a lot of that in those days. And I think it was the Friday night. The heavens opened. The rain was pouring. The roof of the old theatre was not that good. And good old Sam Mackey decided, because there started to be a small leak, to climb up into the rafters with some huge tarpaulin and lay it across to catch the leak, which was sort of brilliant because we were aware of a little drop on stage. We carried on regardless, but apparently this thing filled up into a small lake, and eventually poor Sam was up there, couldn't do anything about it, and it collapsed, and this waterfall came down. Most of the cast were covered. Some of the Fulford furniture was covered. It was really, and having to sort of carry on and pretend, what was that going on? It was not easy, but we all plowed through it. But poor Sam, up he was with his lake of water let go on this stage. It was a funny moment.
I can't think of one. Everything's worked out as planned.
My favorite blooper was during I'm Herbert when we were in Merrickville in Festival. We had performed the play before, a two-person play with Peter Galvin directing and acting. And for some reason, the laughter after one of the lines threw me. And I paused, wondering what the next line was. And Peter fed it to me in a roundabout way, and we continued. The adjudicator afterwards said that she enjoyed the dramatic pause and had hoped that we would put more in them. But that one was dramatic enough for me. Thank you very much.
I think the time Pat Marshall and I were doing the one-act festival in Merrickville, we were doing I'm Herbert. We were maybe several pages into the performance, and Pat hung up on a line, which seemed like 10 years of time. And we're both rocking on those rocking chairs. And I've got my binoculars looking for birds, and Pat's got her fly swatter and paper, and we're filling time like a couple of old farts, and I'm looking for a line for Pat, and I'm sure Pat's brain is looking for a line to get going, and finally I just said, "The cat's got your tongue, huh?" And the line she needed was, "You always could mix me up back then when we went to Europe." And we were back on track. The real fun of the whole thing, the upshot of the whole thing is, it seemed like hours of time went by. The adjudicator said, "I particularly liked that pause earlier on in the play." She said the play could probably use 2 or 3 more of those pauses. Pat and I were dying. We laughed so much about that afterwards. So every time we performed it, and we performed it 20 times at least, we always said, "Should we throw in another couple of those pauses?" But we never did.
I would like to thank my gym teacher, Vivian O'Neill. I acted up in gym class, and she told me and my friend who was with me in on the act that if we wanted to act up, we could act in the variety concert coming up in the spring. That was the start of the whole thing. I got the bug.
Oh, I could thank so very many people all the way along the way, but I think actually I have to say thank you, God, for giving me this talent that I have, and that's where it comes from. You have to have a God-given talent. It's in your heart.
Oh, a great many people. I think I'd particularly like to thank Sue Braden for getting me back into theatre. I hadn't been back into it, been in it for several decades before that play I mentioned, See How They Run. And but I'd also like to thank a great many people who I worked with, front stage, backstage, front of house, and the many friends that I made before, during, and after Theatre Guild productions.
Renata Henderson. In addition to being a good friend, she was a fantastic leader of the set construction crew for many years, and she provided me with my biggest surprise. I still don't know how she convinced the board of directors to appoint me as a life member in 2001. I have difficulty in understanding why I'm only one of 11 members so honoured in our 8-year history.
Well, I would thank Roger Tripp. He was an excellent director, and he got me into producing, and he used to work months and months and months in advance to have his plays ready before he did them. And Roger was sometimes difficult to work with because he had a very clear idea on what he wanted, and everybody knew that.
I hate to say it because there are too many names that I leave out. Shirley Ashenden for being so involved in the beginning, and she was a wonderful director, and Nancy Fraser, and Pauline Grant, of course, was a wonderful costumes person. She was amazing. There were just so many people. We had wonderful guest directors come in. I don't know. I don't know. In all my involvement with the Guild, there've just been so many people and so many good times, fun times. I wish I could do it more now.
Well, firstly, let me go in order, not necessarily order of importance, but definitely order of people that impacted me. And the first one is Pauline Grant, which probably some people don't know about. Pauline, she went beyond being an actor. She had done some acting, but she certainly did sets. I learned a lot of set construction from Pauline in detail. Aging of sets, and knew how to create the effects with spongings and cheesecloths and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of great stuff for that. Plus, she was the keeper of the costumes for years and years and years, meticulous order, and which was vital to the Guild. I mean, the reason we have so much of that stuff today is largely in part to Pauline's involvement. So she gave all this selfless time to that, and to me, that's what stands out with people, that I've had the opportunity to know over the years. Another person was, of course, Stan Pierce, who was an excellent actor, singer. He could dance. His movement on stage was just beautiful. Wish I had more opportunity to work with him. But fortunate for me, I did get to work with him in the operatic as well as with the Guild. Another gal that I really loved, who unfortunately didn't do enough, but I got to work with her, I got to direct her, and was Edith Shepard. Edith was a natural. When she had it, and it was solid. She just knew how to turn the phrase. She was just so natural about it. And of course, my dear friend Marjorie, great person to direct. But to really disappear into a character, to disappear, and then when those lines are delivered, you listen. They mean something. And Marjorie has that. And I'd also like to remember all of those people that were on the Music Theatre Board for 5 years, and prior to in the fundraising, the initial fundraising campaign, who stayed the course, and there was, I think, 13 people on that board. The result of their efforts is now currently at the back of the theatre, which is the Music Theatre building. It was a $330,000 project. We did get some funding from Ontario, but the bulk of that work was done by those people. The bulk of the funds was raised by those people. The city did contribute some towards the end. And Mayor Sheridan was the one who suggested that we attach to the theatre, which I thought was a very good move on his part. I think it's been very instrumental for our groups, but also for professional groups coming in. It's a great adjunct to that building, but it should always be remembered it was built by the two groups and a lot of hard work by those people involved on that board.